welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today we are going to talk about the sandwich generation. For those of you unfamiliar, the sandwich generation was a term that was created to explain people that are somewhat in the situation I'm in right now, although not 100%. We'll get there. Basically, it is middle-aged persons who are dealing with aging parents and children, and possibly grandchildren. So I wanted to bring this up. Somebody a long time back, way back when my podcast was very new, had asked if I would do an episode on grief with taking care of aging parents. And it's been on my list. It's been a thing I keep looking at, but I just wasn't sure how to approach it. And I am starting to, my parents are still okay. They're still fine. They still live on independently, but they're starting to have some health issues. It's become not stressful yet. Okay, it's a little stressful, but, and again, they're okay. I don't want anybody thinking my parents are dying. My parents are not. They're fine. But like I said, they've had some, my dad recently had surgery. My mom has had multiple surgeries to replace bits in her body over the last couple of years. And it's just one of those things where I finally sat back and looked at my parents and realized that they're not 35 anymore, which is obvious because I'm 45. So, but they've just always eternally been like 35 in my head, and they're not. And first of all, I know my mom listens to this podcast, so Mom, I'm sorry. I hope none of this upsets you that I'm sharing this. I won't share too much personal, I promise. But we are pretty open. We've gotten more open about talking about what may happen and end of life, especially now that I'm doing this line of work. I'm obviously open to talking about it, but I respect their wishes too. And yeah, it's just something that's kind of been in the front of my mind recently as I'm helping, take care a little bit of my dad after surgery and trying to get them to sell the childhood 4-bedroom home and move into a smaller condo where they have neighbors and I will have to worry about them less. But I was talking with somebody else about this, and I was reminded about the sandwich generation, which, again, are people who are dealing with that, but also may have kids at home, or kids in college, or kids in high school, or possibly grandkids around, depending on family dynamic and ages of births and everything. But it's quite an interesting and insanely stressful situation to be in. So let's say, for example, you are in your mid-40s, you've got 2 kids that are about to start, one's in college, one is about to graduate high school, and you're trying to hold down a full-time job, your spouse is working a full-time job, and now one of your parents was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and they are still at home, and you're trying to figure out how to get them into a facility, and if they really need it, and they're combative about it, and they don't want to go, and now you're dealing with all of this while working a full-time job and trying to maintain your own sanity. It's incredibly stressful, and outside of just the stress of it, it creates a lot of grief. There's a lot of grief involved in this, and I did an entire episode on anticipatory grief, so feel free to go back and look for that one. But a lot of this is anticipatory grief. When a loss is imminent, especially if you're watching somebody who is aging or somebody who is very sick, who has a terminal disease, and you're watching this and you know it's coming and you've already started the grieving process while they're still there. So you've got this anticipatory grief going on, but there's also a grief of the loss of some of your freedoms. You might not get to have your weekly wine night with the girls because you're having to take care of your parents, and maybe you're having to pick up a second job to pay for college for your kids. And you've just got too much going on and you can't enjoy a lot of the freedoms you had before. Your life is a little more busy. But also there's the anticipatory grief of losing your parents. And again, this is all dependent on your relationship with your parents, obviously. But in my situation, I'm going to be devastated when they're gone. Specifically since my brother's passed away, our little 4-person family will be one. And that's hard. I'm trying not to get choked up right now, but I absolutely get emotional when I think about this. And I'm absolutely experiencing anticipatory grief. And again, my parents are okay. I have to keep saying that. But, with those feelings of anticipatory grief and fear, there's fear too. There might be anger and frustration. There might be guilt. I can almost guarantee there's going to be guilt. I know I'm feeling it. I am trying desperately. I quit my day job. As most of you know, I'm doing this full time, and I'm trying desperately to get my business off the ground and make an income and keep my own self together. And I want to just be with my parents all the time now because I'm seeing their fragility, and I feel guilty that I can't help them as much as I want to. Like, I want to be out there every single day helping them purge some of their belongings or clean stuff up to get their house ready to sell. I want to help them shop for condos. I want to be able to do all that, but I just can't. And I absolutely have guilt with that. So there's a lot of things that are going to go into that. And you might have guilt that you have to spend a lot more time with your mom or your dad because they're having some health issues and you're missing things that your kids are doing, and maybe you missed getting to take pictures of your son going to prom with his date or, things like that. There's going to be guilt involved because you can't be everywhere, right? So what do we do? First of all, take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. Accept that these emotions and these feelings are normal. I bring that up in pretty much every single episode, that whatever you're feeling is normal and it's okay. If you're feeling guilt, that's normal. That's okay. If you're feeling anger, yeah, of course you are. I would be too. That's normal and that's okay. Okay? Now, my next piece of advice is one of those easier said than done, Nikki. Okay. Just control what you can control and let go of the rest. And I know that I can't do that. Like, I'm saying this, but God knows I have so much trouble letting go of things that I have no control over, right? But you have to. If you are doing too much, or if you keep just stressing over things that you have zero control over, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're just going to burn out. You're going to have no energy, and you're not going to be of any use to anybody. Okay? It's hard. I know just saying like, let it go is so easy for me to say. I get it. It's not always easy, but you have to. You just have to let that go. Okay? The other one, another one of those things is like, yeah, right, Nikki. Don't take on more than you can handle. And don't feel like you have to do everything. Again, preaching to myself as much as anybody else. Okay? God knows I want to try to do it all. I want to do everything because I'm a control freak and I have trouble letting go of things like I just said, but you can't. You have to just do what you can and let go of the rest. And if you take on too much, you're going to burn out and you can't do anything. What else can we do? Look for help. Look for help. If you need help with your parents and they need extra help, like an aide or somebody to come into their house just to help them with their housework, cooking, cleaning, laundry, things like that, tasks around the house and making sure their medications are straight. There are programs and people that will do this for you. And I can hear you out there saying, my parents don't have any money and, they're living off Social Security and a tiny little bit of retirement money. They can't afford that. Well, reach out to your local area agency on aging. I've spoken with the people over at the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging here in Columbus several times. I've looked at their website. Look at Passport, Senior Options. There are so many places out there that have programs for people who may not have a lot of money or no money. And if they've got Medicare or Medicaid, that might cover it. You might be really impressed with what's covered. So look into that. Do a little, it might take a bit of time to do some research, make a couple phone calls. Find a social worker at one of these places and just explain the situation. They do this for a living, you guys. They know the resources that are there that you can take advantage of so that you don't have to do everything yourself. Okay? My next piece of advice, cut yourself some slack. Cut yourself some slack and be gentle with yourself because you're going through a lot. So just take a break every now and then, sit back and say, wow, this is a lot. But don't be afraid to ask for help. Outside of the senior options and Passport and senior, whatever senior options might be available in your local area, are they a member of a church? A lot of churches will have groups that will come together and bring dinner over for them. I know my church goes to visit shut-ins or people that can't leave their home. This was prior to COVID, and they are back to doing that a little bit now, but they would take the program from the church service that morning, perhaps pick up some breakfast, or have, if we had breakfast at the church, take a hot meal over, drop off breakfast, give them the program, say a prayer with them, maybe read a Bible verse. So if they're a member of a church or some type of religious organization, check in with them. See if they have a group of volunteers that will come chat with them or help take care of a few things. Do they have neighbors that can check in on them for you? Are they in a situation where somebody might just knock on their door once a day and be like, hey, just checking in, or mow their lawn, shovel the sidewalk, things like that. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And don't be afraid to ask for help for yourself, too. If you're just burning out at both ends and you just really can't handle it, ask for help. Talk to a therapist. Find a counselor. Find a support group. Guys, there are support groups out there for caregivers. There's tons of support groups for caregivers in Central Ohio. Find one of those. Talk to some people who are going through the same crap you are. You might make a new friend, too. Look at that. Somebody you can text at 3 a.m. that's like, I'm losing my mind. Go for it. It's fine. Okay? Always ask for help. Never be afraid of that. I say that 1,000,001 times, right? One last thing I want to bring up. If one of your parents is deceased already and the other parent is still alive and now they're facing these health issues and you're taking care of them, keep in mind they might be having some grief too. Well, they definitely are having some grief if they've lost their spouse or their significant other, whatever. They're absolutely experiencing some grief too. So just remember that and understand that they're not trying to frustrate you. They're not trying to be difficult, but they might have some things they're working through as well. So for those of us out there in our middle age, I feel like I can't really include myself in this because I don't have children, but I obviously have a life and a job, sort of, and a spouse and my own home that I need to take care of. But I can't fathom how much more difficult dealing with this would be if I had kids in the mix too. So my heart goes out to all of you. But just remember, above all, the entire point of this podcast is for me to let you know that you're not alone. You're not. There are millions of other people out there dealing with this too. And it sucks and it's hard, but you're not alone. I promise you're not the only one going through it, okay? Okay. Now, with that said, it is now time for the Death Deck, which actually today it's the End of Life Deck. Woo! Okay, I'm going to shuffle up the cards. Have you guys joined me over on Patreon yet? You can go to patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula and support me so I can provide pro bono service to those who cannot afford my services. Okay. Oh, goody. I'm so glad I pulled this card. Death doulas can provide additional specialized support during serious illness. Would you consider involving one in your care? A, yes, I would love the compassionate support of a death doula. B, maybe if my family wants more guidance and assistance. Or C, what the heck is a death doula? Please tell me more. I hope by now those of you listening know what a death doula is because I talk about it a lot. So my answer to that question is absolutely, I would love to have a doula. I have a friend here in Columbus who is a death doula, Jill. Hi, Jill. You're going to be my death doula if I'm ever terminally ill, just so you know. I believe I've mentioned it to her before. But yes, I would love to have a doula at the end of my life. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want my family to be there. I want my spouse to be there. I won't really have much family left, but I will have some family, and I'd love for them to be around. But I would absolutely love to have a death doula there with me, 100%. And I hope you would too. If you would be interested in hiring a death doula, you can find my website, NikkiTheDeathDoula.com. You can also find me on all the social medias at Nikki the Death Doula. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So you can find me on those wonderful platforms. Please follow me there. And if you really enjoyed this episode, share it with somebody. Tell somebody about it, especially if you know somebody who's dealing with all this crap. And if you also really enjoyed it, the other nice thing you could do is leave a review and rate it wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever. That would be fantastic. And join me over on Patreon. You can get access to my podcast a week early, and twice a week I send out beautiful grief affirmations. And I'm hoping to start having some like Q&As and some live sessions with all my patrons. So you can check that out over at patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. You can try it for free for 7 days. And I have tiers as low as $1 a month. So for just $1 a month, you can really help me out. For $10 a month, you can help me out 10 times as much. Okay, enough of that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, and grief doesn't always have to suck.